So this is Module 4 of EDU 350, Designing Meaningful Learning Outcomes. So again, I'm Professor Sarah Rice. This is my email if you need anything. So essentially in this module, we are working on the essential components of designing meaningful learning outcomes or objectives. And we're going to talk about what makes an effective objective. And we're going to also practice writing and evaluating learning objectives. So here are our central questions. So what makes an effective objective? How do we break down standards? And how do we refine learning objectives to meet all learners? So in your reading, you have the Mastering the Art of Lesson Planning, and it talks about your lesson plans being specific measure or objectives being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So creating SMART goals for your students. And we also are going to be learning about a lot about UDL in this module, so Universal Design for Learning. There are several readings about it and some videos as well. So this UDL allows us to recognize students' individual uniqueness, acknowledges every learner, supports flexible teaching options, and then it also supports equity. So it directly connects to what we learned in the last module about creating equity and justice for our students. So, why is UDL important? So, it stimulates interest and motivation. It presents information and content in different ways to meet different learning needs, and it also helps to differentiate the ways that students express how they are showing what they know. So, in this video, there's this video in the materials, and it talks about what is UDL, what UDL is not, and what does it look like in the classroom. And then essentially the UDL principles are multiple means of engagement. So student engagement is equal parts attention and commitment. So when we are thinking of UDL, we want to think of what are the different ways that we are supporting students in engaging in the learning. Multiple means of representation. So how are we giving opportunities for students to learn the information and then also to show what they know. And then multiple means of expression. So when students are interested in authentic learning outcomes, then you give them different options to meet their needs. So, and having an authentic assessment, a way for them to express what they know. So here's some examples of multiple means of representation, right? So you can do music, video, closed caption, different books, a lecture, a magazine. So there's lots of ways of showing, right? Representing the information. Expression, right? So there's lots of ways students can express themselves through drawings, through acting it out, through typing, through writing, and then different ways that they can engage in the material. So they can do learning centers, they can do collaborative teamwork, they can play a game, they can, again, with music, audio, they can create something. So there's lots of different ways to engage the students. So when we're thinking of UDL, we want to think it's not one size fits all. We want to think of all the different ways that we are representing the information. So if you're teaching about butterflies, maybe you show a video about butterflies, read a book about butterflies. You have students listen to a story about butterflies. So there's all different ways you're representing it. And then if you're having students, for example, do the butterfly life cycle, maybe they can do a drawing, or they can act it out, or they can create a poster, or they can write about it. So there's lots of different ways they can express it. And then how are they engaging with the material? So maybe you have them do centers on butterflies, and you have different centers on butterflies. Maybe they're observing them. Maybe you have a butterfly activity that they can observe them coming out of their cocoons. And so that's, they're really engaging with them every day. So thinking about, all the different ways and all the different types of learners. So these are just some reflection questions to just really think about, how does UDL connect with what we learned last week? So how does it support culturally responsive teaching in equitable environments? And then how does it disrupt deficit-based thinking and support asset-based thinking? And so moving on from UDL, we're going to be learning a lot about objectives. So objectives guide lesson planning, and that's why they need to be SMART. So all of your activities, your assessments, your materials, everything directly connects to your objective. So when you have clear objectives, right, you can stay on the road. Without your clear objectives, it just creates a situation of pure chaos. So we want to think about our learning outcomes or objectives, right? They should align with the curriculum. They should be meaningful for students. They're a clear framework for evaluating student progress, so it's directly connected to your assessment. They're meaningful and measurable. So again, you are using your objective, you are assessing your objective. So any objective that you have in a lesson plan needs to be assessed. They are directly connected, your objectives and your assessments. And then they need to be SMART. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So here are, in this reading that I mentioned, it talks directly about how to make an objective SMART. And these are questions you can ask yourself along the way. This video in your materials is an overview of how do you unpack the standards so that you can create your objectives. And then when we are unpacking the standards, and the video will explain more, you want to identify the standard, you unpack the nouns, the verbs, and then the adjectives, and then you use that to help make your objectives SMART. So here's an example. This is a first grade math standard. You have your standard, right? So the first part you're going to do is identify your standard, and then you're going to unpack the nouns, verbs, and adjectives. So we have the verbs, or what are they doing, the nouns, what do they need to know, and the adjectives, the depth of the learning. So here is our first grade math standard, and then here's the unpacking, the verbs, the nouns, the adjectives. So using that, I'm able to create this objective. Students will be able to solve addition word problems using drawings to represent the problem. Okay, so now I have my basic objective here based off of the unpacking of the standards. So you see, I unpacked it, and then I was able to create an objective. Now I'm going to go through and see if it's SMART. Okay, so we have students will be able to solve addition word problems using drawings to represent the problem. Okay, is it specific? Yes, it's specific. Is it measurable? No, it was not measurable. So I added this. Students who successfully measured accuracy of 4 problems with an assessment. Okay, is it achievable? Yes. Is it relevant? Yes. Time bound? No, it was not time bound. So I added that, and then I rewrote it here. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to solve 4 addition word problems using drawings to represent the problem as measured by a teacher-created assessment. So now, here was my previous objective that from unpacking the standard. I put it through the SMART process, and then I rewrote it, and now, yes, it is SMART. But what about UDL? So now I need my multiple means of engagement, representation, and action, and expression. So now I took my new standard, my SMART one, and I included UDL. And now here is my final objective that includes UDL. Or you can see it's SMART, but then I also have my multiple means of engagement, expression, and representation. So this is how we write good objectives that support our students. Remember our objectives, if we go back to the beginning, our objectives need to, if we go back to the beginning, our objectives need to be not only SMART, right, meaningful and measurable, aligned to the standards, but they also need to meet the needs of all learners. So that is how UDL supports us in meeting the needs of all learners. So you're going to be doing that in your discussion. You're going to have objectives that you're going to be evaluating and answering the questions on. And then in your assignment, you are going to be working on unpacking the standards, making the objectives SMART, and adding UDL. So this is what the assignment looks like here. So that is the bulk of what you're going to be doing this week in EDU 350.